welcome to another video with me for the Wolftime. Today we're going to be looking at these X-Wing fighters that we get in the Star Wars Armada box set from FFG. These are great little fighters, a great little bit of detail on them, but as you can see they are very, very tiny. We put the Citadel paint pot there so you can see a bit of a comparison between the two, and you can see how small these guys are. Now everything in the box set comes pre-painted apart from the fighters, unfortunately. So they really do stick out, and as you can see they are quite a block of light grey, and they really stick out to me as not having any of that paint on there. To get a nice quick easy paint job, you could just pop some ink on there which will sink down into the detail, and you'll have that detail on them straight away, nice and easy. But I want to get some colour on there as well, so I'm going to have a look at repainting them. Before we do though, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to see any future videos. I'll give you a second to do that and then we'll carry on. Okay guys, so I've had a little bit of a play with a few paints and things and tried to find some decent colour for the X-Wings. As you can see, I picked one. I'm quite happy with this now. These guys look really, really good compared to the other ones. You look at this plain sort of creamy yellowy plastic, which is okay, and you're perfectly fine to play games with these, but you look at these in comparison and they really do fit in to the rest of the fleet then, because you've got that paint on there, and they look a little bit more realistic in comparison to these guys anyway. So I'll show you how to do those now. We'll pop them aside. I had a little bit of experimenting with different greys and things, but I finally went for the Citadel Administratum Grey as the base coat. So the first thing we'll do is actually get that on there itself. Now you can use any grey you want with this, but with the X-Wings are a lot lighter than the TIE fighters in all the films and things, so I wanted quite a light grey, and this one is ideal. To actually get this on there, I've just got a small detail brush from a company called unpainted, but you can get any sort of modelling brush or anything like that will do. Now I'm going to paint these on the stand purely because trying to hold these models in place and paint them would be impossible really to try and do that. So I'm just going to pull them out of the stand itself slightly, just so the base of the actual X-Wing itself isn't like sat right on top of this plastic. So you don't want to get any on the plastic at all, and that's why I recommend using a smaller brush really to try and mitigate that a little bit. So you do is put it straight over. You can put this straight out of the pot for these. It is a layer paint, so you may need to have a couple of coats if you use this particular one. If you use other greys and things, make sure you use a model paint because you'll lose the detail straight away, and you don't want to do that. There isn't a lot of detail on these things, so if any detail you do lose will have quite a big impact. So you can see that there, that's already standing out quite a lot. So I'll work on this now and then we'll come back. Okay, so there we have it. We've got the Administratum Grey all in place now. We'll keep that one out though, just in case we need to touch up afterwards, because when you start putting the details on this thing, on these ships, you do sometimes go over a little because they're so small, which is okay. So we'll keep that just in to hand to tidy up afterwards. So we'll leave that to dry, and then we'll carry on with the next colour. Okay, so we've given that a little while to dry, and the next step is to add in some of the darker details on the vessel itself. To start with, we've got just the top area behind the cockpit. There's just where the droid will sit. There's like a darker patch just to the rear. To do that, I'm going to use Dawnstone, which is a slightly darker grey, and we're just going to essentially draw a dark line just with one of our tiny brushes, just along the rear there. To do this, I've got the insane detail brush this time from Army Painted, just because I wanted a slightly smaller brush so I could get in there. And what this will do, this will add like this sort of darker area, but not make it too dark, as to stand out too much. just on the rear of the three X-wings there. So that's that one done. Really easy, quick detail to add in. The next step is to continue this, and we're going to use an Eshin grey next, which is a much darker grey on the engines, on the front and the rear of the actual engines themselves. So to do that, using the Insane Detail brush again, all we're going to do is just touch the front of each of the engines. So you've got like these 4 engines. We're just going to touch, literally just get a little bit of paint and just touch it on there. And you've got like the 4 on the 4 dots there. So you've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that's all you need to do. You need makes that just stand out. If you look at any of the artwork of the X-wings, that does stand out quite a lot compared to the rest of the ship. And also just around the rear of the engines as well. So we'll do little dots to start with, just on the rear of the 4 engines. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see that's already standing out quite a lot compared to the ones next to it, and then just go around slightly, just like 1 millimeter in, maybe 2 millimeters in, just to add a little bit more depth to the like rear mount of these engines. So I'll do that on these 3 ships now, or 3 fighters now, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so there we have it. We've got those areas of the darker grey done now. So that was quite an easy detail to do. Very simple, very quick and effective look to those engines. So the next stage now is to do the cockpit itself. Now, because of the scale of this, I don't think you need to go into that much detail as to have the like grey areas going down the cockpit. I'm simply going to paint them a black area on the top, and to do that I'm going to use the Army Painter matte black. So I'm just going to pop a little bit onto my palette just off screen here, and I'm going to use this Insane Detail brush again, purely because I don't want to go in and get too much paint on there. So all you do is find the top of the cockpit and just pull your brush down so you get that rectangle just on the top of the cockpit there. Now you can, if you want to, go into more detail and do the sides of the cockpit, little triangles on the sides. I'm not going to do that because I just don't think it adds that much more than the finished product that we get from putting these few paints on there. There's a lot of people out there who I'll say a lot, there's a few people out there who do add those details in, and they do look absolutely fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think they're needed for playing games at this scale. So there you go, you've got the 3 cockpits, and you can see they stand out really nicely, and you can see there the cockpit straight away. So we're going to give those paints, the greys and the black, a little bit of time to dry now, just to make sure we don't rub any of that paint off when doing any of the next details. So I'll leave it there, and then we'll come back in a few. Okay, so we've given that a little bit of time to dry now, and we're now going to be adding the final sort of colour before we go on to shading. So to do that, we're going to use Macaridge Blue. Now, this is essentially the squadron markings. So you can do red squadron, blue squadron, whoever you want. For me, this particular one is going to be blue squadron. I quite like the fact that they're a little bit different. You know, they're not the norm of red squadron. So I'm going to go with the blue one. So to do that, you need stripes down each side of the hull and a little bit on the wings. So again, we've got the Insane Detail brush here, and we're just getting a little bit of paint on there on our brush and trying to get a really good fine point to the brush. So to do that, you literally need to go into the X-wing itself, then slowly draw your brush back, giving you that first line. It's exactly the same on the other side now. Go into the X itself with the X-wing. and slowly draw your brush back. You can see that line's not perfect, but that's not an issue because we can go into it afterwards as well with the lighter grey and just tidy up that line slightly. Just going to extend it a little bit there. It has just gone underneath a little bit. I'm not 100% happy with that one, but as I said earlier on, we tidy as we go as well. So now for the actual squadron markings on the wings themselves. What we're going to do is a little bit of a zigzag pattern. So right at the front of the wing, next to the engine, you have like half the wing is going to be blue. So we're just going to do a little blue rectangle just there. Exactly the same on the other side. There's like a slight crease in the mould of the X-wing, so that you can stop at essentially. It gives you an idea of where it is. So you've got like a little blue square or rectangle each side, and then we're going to do offset that. So we're not going to go right next to the pylon this time. We're going to go close to the engine itself. Exactly the same. Little blue square or rectangle, just offset from the first one, to give you like almost like a little zigzag shape on the wing there. Okay, so we'll do that to the other X-wings now, and then we'll come back. Okay, so there we have it. We've got all the blue on now. So then the next stage is to tidy all those bits and pieces up where we've maybe gone a little bit over, or the lines aren't exactly straight. So we'll give that a second to dry, and then we'll just go around the model and tidy any bits up with Administratum Grey, which is the colour that we started off with, and the base coat for the actual X-wing itself. So the next stage of this now is going to be shading the actual model itself using Null Oil is what I'm going to use on the model from Citadel again. To do that, give it a really good shake. Get any brush really. You can just use a wash brush, which is ideal for this, but mine's a little bit too big. I don't want to put too much on there, so I'm going to use a detail brush to do this. So I'm just going to saturate my brush. Make sure I've got plenty on there, and the brush is really nice and wet with the paint, and then just make sure I haven't got too much paint on there, if you know what I mean. And then all we're going to do is go around and just cover the whole model. Try and go front to back or back to front, not sideways, so if it does leave any streaks, it sort of looks a little bit more natural for the actual fighter itself. Like it's seen a little bit of battle maybe, and it's a little bit battle worn, and you've got a few streaks of oil and things as it's been flying along, rather than sideways, because that'll just look strange. So give the model a complete coat all over. Try not to miss any areas, because they will stick out like a sore thumb on these. Try and get all underneath. The edges of the wings are something that you always tend to miss, and all inside the wings as well. So make sure you get all the way around. So that's the first one done. You can already see how much that's darkened that grey down. So we'll do the others, and then we'll leave it to dry for a little while. This is going to take a good while to dry, so I'm probably going to leave this for an hour or two, just to make sure all this shading has all gone into place and is all dry. One note on this: if you do find that it's pooling anywhere, simply like wipe your brush a little bit. Just touch your brush on, and your brush will actually soak this up really quickly. It's so thin. It's really good to use. So yeah, I'll do this now, and then I'll leave it to dry for a little while. Given that a little bit to dry now, and we've moved on to the very final detail. Now this is something that you won't always notice is there, but you'd notice if it wasn't there, if that makes sense. Is the actual engines themselves. Now we've done the grey areas already around the engines, and that looks really good. But what we're going to do, we're going to give it a glow. Now to do that, first paint we're going to use is Screamer Pink, and all we're going to do, we're going to drop our little brush into the pot here, and the same way as we did the grey bits earlier, is just pop Screamer Pink just on the circles. Now to do that, the best thing I can advise you doing is using the side of your brush to put this on, purely because if you use the front of your brush, you're bound to miss the actual rear of that engine there, and to get some pink paint where you don't want it. So we'll just do these last ones here, and you've got all the engines are now like a dark pink colour, which is great, and you can leave it there if you want to, without any further work needing doing to it, and it looks absolutely fantastic. But I want the engines to have a little bit of a glow, so I'm going to put this other Citadel paint I've got here, Pink Horror, into the centre of what we've just done, essentially. So we could do this. You don't really want to be doing it straight away, but I'm going to do it just for demonstration purposes. You really want to make sure that this is dry before you put in the next one on. But if you're careful, it shouldn't make a difference, because what it can do, the two colours can mix, and that's not what you want. You want this to sit right in the centre of what you've just done. So all we're going to do is just touch the middle now. This is, we'll need the edge of your brush for this one. You've got to be really careful when you're trying to get this on there, not to put too much on. So we're literally just getting a tiny bit of paint on the end of our brush and just touching the engine. We don't want to press down too much, not like we did with the previous colour, because what we'll find is this lighter pink will then cover up the darker pink. And that's not what we want. We want there to be a contrast between those two, the two colours essentially. So it looks like the hottest area is in the centre, and it creates that glowing effect. And there we have it. So that's that detail done now. It's, as I say, it's something that you probably wouldn't notice if it wasn't really, if it wasn't there all the time, you wouldn't really see that detail, but you will pick up on it, and it is that extra little bit just to make things look like the films themselves, and really get you into the games and stuff. So it just finishes it off. You know, for me, I'm all about this fully immersive gameplay. I want everything to look real. I want it all to look really good, and this is as close as I can get these things without spending hours and hours on them. So you can see after doing all that, including the paint drying time, it probably takes maybe 3 hours to do, but actual work time is not very long at all. You're probably only looking at 45 minutes for actually painting a squadron, which I know can sound a lot, but look at the difference it makes now compared to that yellow. It's such a difference. I'm really pleased with it. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I'll put some decent quality photos just at the end of this video, so you can see what the actual models look like themselves, and I'll get the other squadrons and we'll put them next to each other as well. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like the video, subscribe for any more content, and check out everything else that we've got on the channel. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.